Fishermen can have love for the truckie. Beautiful minds, but we love getting ugly. Risk takers with a clover, man, we love getting lucky. You run, we chase fire, I love when it ducks me. Tones go off, house watch, read the address out. 1075, get up off the magic couch. 500 gallons prepared for the baddest drought. Who else you want on the way when disaster's out? Can't even get a little bit rattled when you enter with exit apparel. Mayday, member down, they'll drag you. You won't get this from every Tom, Dick, and Harry, but here's a view from the top floor with Mickey Farrell.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of View from the Top Floor. Doing a street talk today. One of my favorite pubs up here on the Upper West Side. I'm watching the St. John's game. We're at halftime, so I figured I'd jump in and get you a quick episode for today. I had the privilege the other day to observe a class doing some training at an academy. A lot of good training going on, but something that stood out to me was how we truly are still programming firefighter robots. I just can't wrap my brain around some of the things that we're actually teaching that doesn't parallel real life whatsoever. It's nothing we're doing on the fire ground. The scenario that I'm referring to is forcible entry. Now, we're going through the steps with the forcible entry props and the doors, and it's good stuff. And we're honing in on that craft of understanding that the tools are an extension of our body, and that never changed, that will never change. And that's something we have to work on and get better with. You know, I always say a good drill is just carry the tools around the firehouse for the tour, or if it's a work night or drill night for you, just carry around the tools and become intimate with them. Understand how they feel in your hands. So when you go out the door, and there's a little bit of pressure behind what you're going to be doing with those tools, it should become natural. I'm very fortunate to work in a place where the guys get off the rig thousands and thousands of times every year, and those tools become so natural for them. It's almost like a work of art watching these guys carry the tools. And that's so many great companies across the city or across the country, more or less, that when you become comfortable with your tools and they are an extension of your body, it shows. And that translates to the fire floor almost flawlessly. Now, what we have to wrap our brain around, which we're having a hard time, and I've spoken about this before, but it's the idea that the door in forcible entry, that is not your task. That is merely the obstacle. The mission is 10 to 15 feet and beyond inside that door. So we're so caught up in programming these robots and having a systematic steps of gap, set, force. Do we shock? Do we not shock? These are all things that, yes, we talk about, but we have to understand the circumstances in the moment dictate what we do next. But again, it is just the obstacle. It is not the task. We have to be proficient at this, but it is not the objective. The objective is the mission beyond the door. So what I was watching was they're forcing the door, they're sweeping the door, and they're slamming the door shut. And they were being graded on this. And if you didn't go through these steps of shock, gap, set, force, sweep, control the door, well, then you're failing that evolution. In reality, that's not how we force doors. It's a fine wine. And I say it all the time, that we have to treat the fire department or the fire building like a fine bottle of wine. We force that door. We let the apartment or that fire room or that fire building breathe. You can see so many things by just slowing down. You know, that word aggressive, it's so overused and getting thrown around the fire service daily. And I don't want to go down the aggressive road, but we have these young firefighters programmed to think that aggressiveness is speed. That is not the case. For me, aggressiveness is tempo. It's slowing down. It's understanding 3, 10, 14 steps ahead of what you're doing in the moment. That's quote unquote aggressive firefighting. And going back to what my good friend Bob Fresler always says, it's simply just doing your job. But what we're not teaching is what our job is. That's where we're losing. That's where we're disconnecting what we're learning in the fire academy. And then we're getting on the fire floor. We're getting on the fire ground. And we've lost that disconnection that these robots are programmed, but they're not understanding what we're doing. I think it comes from instructors in academies without real practical experience, teaching a theory without the parallels of the mistakes they made under pressure. So how do we correct this? And I think it's going back to what I always say, is that this job simply is an art. And within that artistic form, I truly think it's important that we understand tempo, flow state, cadence, rhythm. These are all things that you hear me say millions and millions of times. If you follow any of my content, that's pretty much all I talk about, is the tempo of a fire or the cadence of a fire and how that transcends or parallels into everything we're doing for success. I think we have to teach in the fire academies from day one. We can't get caught up, but when you get to your firehouse, you learn the way they do it, and they'll teach you, because that's proven not to work, because not everyone gets to go to that great firehouse or that firehouse the steep of pride and tradition and training. Some guys go to a dead-end street. Super motivated guys in the academy end up in places where there are no answers, there's no training, and there's no fires. And that's the bottom line. Good guys gravitate to great places and truly believe that. So if you stay motivated and you treat those places like it's the best firehouse in the world, it will lead you to success eventually. I promise you that much. But we have to come out of the academy with the understanding that this is an art form, not necessarily a systematic step of everything we do. Yes, there's testable points, logically speaking, but we have to understand the higher mind. We have to understand instinctual notion. We have to understand that we have no control of anything we're doing. So we go to a fire, we pull up outside a few windows. We have no control of this, but we gain control by accepting just that. When you accept the fact that we have no control, you watch how quickly the tempo of a fire changes for success. Now, I know these are things that you hear me repeat many, many times, and I'm pretty sure I probably did a podcast on all of these at one point. It was just on my mind when I was observing this class and these students going through these evolutions, and they were all very good at what they were doing, but there was no theory behind of what they were doing. There was no discussion of saying, okay, this is just the obstacle, understand the obstacle. The mission is inside the door, 10, 15, 20 feet. Find that fire, find those victims. That's the real mission of why we're forcing that door. Same thing with the portable ladder. I know you've heard me say this as well. It's simply just a bridge to gain position on a fire. We're so caught up in training on portable ladders. And yes, it is so important that we are proficient in throwing portable ground ladders at any fire and every fire we go to. Understanding where we throw them is a whole different conversation. That's the theory behind it. There's the purpose of where we throw ladders. We just don't randomly throw them to every window. Like a lot of people want to say every window should have a ladder. I don't believe in that. It's nice, but it's not practical. When we get caught up in throwing ladders as that is the task, we lost sight of why we're throwing them and where we're throwing them. The task of the portable ladder is to gain position inside the building. It's merely just a bridge to get there. Don't overthink the portable ground ladder. If you drag it there and it looks like shit getting there, I don't care. It got there if you got inside the building. Again, merely a bridge. 75-degree climbing pattern, you don't get that, I don't care. You got in the building. Fly in, fly out, I don't care. You got in the building. None of that truly matters under instinctual notion, under real fire gun stress, when time matters. We always talk about them. And this is we've talked about this before, but that whole hashtag them, that whole slogan, them, it's always been about them. But what we have failed to connect the dots on is that don't overthink the basics. We are reinventing the wheel. Just get the ladder up, just force the door, understand the forceful entry is teamwork. We have the striking firefighter, and then we have the irons firefighter who is operating, who is positioning that tool. We can't lose sight of that as well. So, I don't know, just some random thoughts during the halftime of the St. John's game. I wanted to get you an episode for today. I keep saying the big things coming, and there are. I'm just so incredibly busy right now with traveling and work and balancing life and family and all those things that it takes a toll on you. I am trying to get you an episode weekly. I haven't missed one in a year and a half now. I don't plan on missing one, even if it's a minute here or if it's 10 minutes here. I do have some great guests lined up. And as far as the studio, I still have the remote studio here in New York City. As far as the big studio, the headquarters of National Fire Radio, we are in. Things are looking awesome. I'm really excited about that. So some really, really cool things happening in the future. All right, guys, hope you had a good St. Patrick's Day. The game's back on, so I'm back to the game now. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.